Meanings of colors. So I think, unless you know this, you sort of think, or you may think, that meanings of colors are universal. They're not. Okay? And lastly, standards of beauty. We already did this, so we're going to skip it. But you see how I've added new stuff since last Tuesday. Okay? Okay, first, differences in greeting. Again, we're talking about cultural diversity and how do East Asians greet each other? They bow, of course, right? And did you notice how degrees of bowing are different depending on whom you're bowing to? So even in bowing, there is this sense of hierarchy, right? And French kiss each other on both sides of the cheek. Anyone from France? Is that true? But Belgians, I'm not sure if this is true, but Belgium and France has some kind of a rivalry, no? But why do Belgians do that 3 times? My God, I wish I was living. No. But jokingly, we can say Belgians want to outdo the French, and they do it 3 times. Yes.
I don't think it's true though.
What is true?
That Belgians kiss 3 times. I live near Belgium and I've never seen people kissing.
Oh, so it's less than 3 times?
It's twice.
Twice. Yes.
In Switzerland, it's 3 times.
Switzerland. I'm gonna make note of that. Get rid of Belgians. Okay, and I think this is really a beautiful form of greeting. I think you've seen like in Thailand, they put their hands together and bow like this, right? And Maoris in New Zealand, what do? They press their nose together. Yeah. And is there anybody with a sort of a fascinating form of greeting that you know, other than the ones you see? Yes.
I'm from Kazakhstan, and in our country, people just shake hands. And
Shake hands.
Shake hands, yes. And it's like a bowing. It depends on the hierarchy. If this person is very important for you, you have to shake with 2 hands.
Okay. So I think even in Korea, if you're shaking hands with someone senior than you, in terms of age, rank, you use both hands to appear polite, right? And it'll be interesting to learn when, handshakes became a form of greeting, and I think it's part of maybe globalization. So, did Kazakhs, how do you call people of Kazakhstan? Kazaki. I'm sure if you look at the history of handshake, it originated from Rome, but it spread right all over the world. But anyway, last call. Anyone else? Who? Which culture? Colombia. In Korea, there is sort of this sexist practice with handshake. Men just tend to shake hands with just men, and sometimes just ignore women. I don't know why, but it's often the case. Yeah? Yes?
I work in a shop where we have to shake hands a lot, and my boss says in Australia that I'm supposed to shake hands with all men, and women if they present to be shaken with. But you wouldn't shake a woman's hand if she didn't sort of offer it first.
So this is not uniquely Korean, you're saying?
Yeah, in Australia we do something similar too.
Ah. So this is not necessarily sexist? Or could it be considered sexist?
Yeah.
As I'll be talking about this more later, one of my favorite philosophers is Nietzsche, or Nietzsche, what's his proper Nietzsche. He said, see, I know this in Korean, but as I was trying to translate it into English, it still didn't make sense. What's 사실 in English? Okay, good. He said, in life, there are no facts, just interpretations. Okay? It's a really powerful statement, okay? And it is largely true. Okay? And I'll get back to this a little bit later. Anyway, I have some visual images. Maoris, okay? They rub their nose, okay? Noses. And I had a problem with this because they're men. Just kidding. Again, I'm just joking. I'm very, very open to. I mean, I have a very open mind. And I think this practically captures all types of greeting, right? Okay, second example. So first example of cultural diversity. I mean, it's arbitrarily chosen by me, okay? Second is gestures. And first example is this, right? And what does this mean? If you like rock, sort of a satanic salute, right? You bang your head. Did I do this in high school? Of course. What else? If you love baseball, 2 outs, right? I thought I would get more feedback on this. Anybody else? No? Symbol of the devil and rock on at rock concerts and used to dispel evil in Buddhism and Hinduism. And in Italy, is anyone from Italy?
I'm from Spain, but we do that the same gesture, so like the middle finger, another version, same meaning, like that.
Well, from what I heard, in Italy, if someone flashes this at you, that means your wife is cheating on you. Okay? And it's been confirmed by many Italian friends I know. Okay? And what about this? Crazy, right? But in Argentina, it means you have a phone call. You know how maybe this is you don't know this because you're too young, but in the old days, the phones, you sort of had to dial, right? So that's what this meaning came about. Only in Argentina, but I'm sure even in Argentina they don't use it anymore, right? Oops. I mean, it should have appeared in sequence, but the V finger sign is. This shows you how meanings of gestures change over time. During World War II, it meant victory. But in today's time, peace. And in Korea, this means sign of cuteness. So that even Mona Lisa took up on this gesture. It is said that this came from Japan. Japanese did this first, and then we became, I don't know how this spread, but it's really difficult to take a picture without someone flashing this in Korea. So sometimes we just gotta go, hey, put your hands down. This is a more serious picture, right? So I think many foreign exchange students, you live here long enough, you probably do the same, right? But anybody from Australia, England, Well, you gotta really be careful in flashing this, because let's say you're visiting England, and there's a group of 5 women, Koreans, and this woman asks this person in England, English person, to take a picture for them, and everyone goes, right? Because this means middle finger, right? Is that true or not?
No,
Not really anymore?
not necessarily.
I went back home to Australia just to confirm that.
Yeah.
Because I saw that on Abnormal Summit here, and I didn't know, so I thought he was making that up. So I went home to ask them a healthy sample size, and apparently it does suggest some sort of defiance, but I didn't know that, and it's never in my life.
I had like a pang of something like, oh, that's not quite right, and I saw you do it like that instead, but I'm not sure if if you did it to me, I would have known exactly what you were doing.
I mean, if you did it to me now, I'd be like, cool. But now I know that it's not good.
But just, again, picture the situation. 5 Korean women, you know, who
Yeah, when you
used
do it
to,
like that, then you like pour it in and see some
but anyway, it has an interesting history because during the 100-year war between England and France, the most lethal weapon was long bow, right? And how do you pull the bow strings? You use these 2 fingers, right? And every time English soldier was captured, instead of, you know, so the French soldiers had a choice of taking them, keeping them as prisoners, killing them, or just letting them go. But if they let them go, you know, they would return as, you know, English soldiers again. So they cut off the fingers of the captured English soldiers, okay? Because even if they return to England, they would become useless as soldiers, right? So that's why it became a sign of defiance. Hey, you son, you know, I still have these 2 fingers, you, you know. Okay. And the middle finger, of course, we all know what it means, and I won't flash it, just to show what it looks like. Everyone knows. I mean, it's stupid. Now, very interesting sort of gesture is thumbs up. Has everyone seen the movie The Gladiator? My favorite movie, all time. I've seen it 500 times, minus 495. That movie was so fascinating for me that when I was on a plane, I never watched documentaries, okay? But as I was sort of channel surfing or just looking at the sketch, what do you call that, contents, I saw that there was this documentary on the Gladiator. I had to watch it. And from that, I learned so much about the Gladiator, okay? And gestures, okay? Just before talking about these actual gestures, just as sort of a riddle. At the Gladiator match, who decided the fate of the gladiator who lost? Wrong. The person who decided the fate of the lost gladiator was someone who organized, who hosted the gladiator event, like UFC, you know, president, or WWF, okay? And so again, this is true, not the emperor, because the emperor just came as a guest of honor, okay? And the person who decided this fate, the fate of the fallen gladiator was called, very interesting, editor. And that's where the editor comes, the word editor, the meaning of the editor originated from, okay? And what does editor do? He or she decides whether an article or book lives or dies. You see? Okay? And here come the gestures. Now, if the editor wanted the leader who lost to die, what did he do? Correct. If he wanted the gladiator who lost to live, what did he do? No. It was this. Okay? You know why? Because during the Roman times, this was a phallic symbol. Okay? So, when men were sort of talking and they saw a beautiful woman pass by, they all went like this. Okay? That's what it meant. Over time, what does this mean today? Excellent. Good, right? Now, whenever you use this, you will have to think about what it used to mean in the old days, at least in the Roman Empire. Okay? Another thing about this gladiator thing was that gladiators became so popular that some free men voluntarily joined to be gladiators, believe it or not. Okay? And when some of these really popular gladiators were allowed to actually leave the compound to spend the night wherever. Okay? So if you are interested in this, look it up. The Gladiator documentary, I think it was on National Geographic or Discovery. Just fascinating documentary. And watch the movie too, with Gladiator. Okay? And anybody from the Middle East? Because it is said that in some Middle Eastern countries, this is the same as the middle finger. And I wanted to confirm. Okay? And what about this? So there is someone from France, right? Anyone from France? Okay. Is it true that in France, some could see this as a... Okay, wow, it's true. In France, it signifies your anus. So, it's a swear word, right? You asshole, that's what it means, almost. So, let's say you are invited to a dinner in a French home. And you really had a wonderful dinner. And if you went like, not a good thing to do, right? But anyway, you see how in Korea it means okay, zero, or even money, right? But in China, it could also mean number 3. And I want to go back to what Nietzsche said. In life, there are no facts, only interpretations. And I want you to really rethink about how much we are animals of interpretations. Okay? And let me ask you, of everything you know, everything, okay, from birth to now, how much of what you know is facts, and how much of what you know do you think are interpretations? The ratio, facts versus interpretation. Is it 50-50, 60-40, 70-30, 80-20, 90-10, 95-5? Take a guess. Are you thinking? Okay, what was the guess? 95-5. Very good. Again, I don't know if you thought about this, but of all the things you know, only about 5% are facts. The rest, interpretations. Okay? So, should you have healthy, happy interpretation, or should you be having negative, unhappy interpretations of everything? Right? So, having good, happy interpretations is always good, of course, right? So here we go. UK, USA, okay. Japan, money. Russia, zero. Brazil, insult. Anybody from Brazil? I mean, this is sort of a generalization. I think some people may have different interpretations. Some of the okay. Third example of cultural diversity I want to talk about is wedding rituals. And out of many, many different sort of examples of different wedding rituals, I chose these because they were most interesting. Okay? Look at the first one. We may think the wedding dress is all like white for brides. Not true. It's very colorful in practically all other cultures. This whiteness, sort of wedding dress for women idea is very Western. Okay? And it's really interesting. Huh? Members of the Tidong community in Malaysia do not allow newlyweds to go to the bathroom for 3 days and 3 nights. Isn't this amazing, huh? And in the Congo, I really like this because, you know, marriage is a serious matter, so you don't laugh. Okay? You've heard of this very famous proverb from Russia that if you're going to a war, you pray for 1 day. You're going out to the sea, you pray for 2 days. Maybe I got the two mixed up. But when you're getting married, you pray for 3 days. Okay? Because that's how difficult it is to live with someone whom you don't really know, right? That's why I think in the Congo they really took that to heart. Okay, so it's really a serious matter. I think you've seen this in some Hollywood movies, maybe. Jumping the broom. So bride and the bridegroom jump over the broom. So it symbolizes a new beginning. Okay. And in Sweden, anybody from Sweden? Is this true?
Well, I haven't been to any weddings, so I don't know. Nothing I've heard of, but maybe. Have you?
You've never seen this? Or dead practice, maybe?
Yeah.
Can you ask someone like your mother or your parents and let me know? Okay? So who can say that in the past, okay? I mean, this kind of a practice will never be Korean. And funeral traditions, again, amazing variety in the way people conduct funerals. One of the most shocking examples is, I don't know which culture, but I'm sure you've seen, some of you may have seen this in the documentary on television. They would take the corpse to the top of the mountain and leave it there for crows to really eat the flesh. Okay? I mean, that is their way to return maybe back to nature. Have you seen this?
I think it might be in
Mongolia. Okay. So, but again, just very different ways we treat the dead, or to send the dead to, you know, the next world. And I picked this one because it is very interesting, right? In Ghana, people aspire to be buried in coffins that represent their work or something they loved in life. So, and they're called fantasy coffins, and these are real life-size coffins. Okay? Fish-shaped coffin for fishermen, piano for musician. So just for fun, think of what shaped what shape of coffin would you like to be buried in? For me, it would be guitar or microphone, vocalist. Big pen and notebook for a teacher. Mercedes-Benz for a successful businessman or someone who wanted to make a lot of money. Okay. Bible for a religious person, or should we say Christian? Okay. All right. Next example is colors in culture. For example, black. We'll think that black signifies death. Not true in all cultures. So, but in other cultures, it could be white that signifies death, purple, gray, and so on. Okay. So meanings of colors are different across cultures. I don't know if you can see all these, but again, depending on which culture, you have all these different colors having different meanings. Okay, let's leave it at that. You don't really have to know the specifics, but at least you know that colors have different meanings across cultures. Okay, even the most obvious ones you think, like black, right? And there's even a book, Color and Culture. Okay, last example is something that we already talked about, right? Yes or no? So I'm gonna just skip. But one new example that I wanted to emphasize and to show you is that in this culture, having white teeth is standard of beauty. So what they do is to tattoo their lips black, okay, to emphasize the whiteness of their teeth. Okay, so I still haven't heard it from anyone here who could share something new that I didn't include, especially on men. So if you could find something about standards of beauty, sort of related to men in not necessarily North America or the West, but some cultures you know. Okay, I'm sure you could find some good examples. Like I said, I keep note of every name who writes me. Okay, so do that. For yourself and for me too. So, so we've seen how beauty ideals vary from culture to culture, but pain or risks of ill health effects is often involved. And beauty standards, as the word beauty is very feminine, I think it's imposed on women. Okay, so I mean, you could ask yourself. Is it men who impose these beauty standards on women? Or is it women themselves who are so into competition with one another to appeal to men? I mean, it's a question to think about. Okay? If it's the former, it's a terrible thing, right? Because it's men's expectations that have made women to endure pain, right? But if it's, I mean, it's really hard to tell whether it's the former or the latter. But it's something to think about. Okay. And light-skinned women in the U.S. or Europe may enjoy tanning. But when they do that, they put their skin at the risk of skin cancer. And as you may have heard, because of the white skin, it's most susceptible, or at least more susceptible to skin cancer than other skin colors. Okay? So, yes?
In Australia, we'll get, at like your formal or your big school dance kind of thing, almost all girls will get a fake tan. Like the day before, like pretty much like 95% of them will. And then they all kind of look like Oompa Loompas. And that's what we'll call them. We'll call them Oompa Loompas. Yeah.
Interesting. Yes.
Russia, people, not only girls but boys, they think that if you're 10, that means you travel a lot because it's always cold in Russia. And if you look 10, that means you're rich and you travel a lot to the countries where there's always summer.
Interesting. So that's, I mean, it makes sense, right? Russia is cold? No, only cold in the winter. But anyway, if you're 10, that means you travel a lot, you've been to tropical areas and so on. But you know how women in Korea and Japan, they, even in the summer, during on sunny days, they carry umbrellas, right? So that's to keep their skin lighter, right? But women in Southeast Asia, they go a step further, and that is to bleach their skin. Okay, so we saw the bound feet phenomenon that existed in China, but we could also think about corsets. Is that how you pronounce? Corset? Corsets, which were popular in Europe in the past, it caused a lot of pain because you really fastened it so hard or so tight that you could barely breathe, I mean, as the saying goes, right? So sometimes it crushed organs, okay? Of course, today we endure tattoos. I mean, that's sort of a unisexual, right? Both men and women do that. Piercings, still more women than men. And cosmetic surgeries, it really come with big risks, and then definitely more women than men. Okay? And the next slide is, so standards of beauty change over time, and a good example is this. In Fiji, traditionally, more rounded women were considered sort of more beautiful. But with the penetration of Western shows and so on, the beauty standard is more focused on slim body, right? Okay, and just hear this in passing. This impact of the media on the standards of beauty are this. This in one study that I remember reading about like 20 years ago, so I can't really be sort of faithful to the actual sort of findings, but from what I remember is this. So there was a study that was done, let's say, in the 1960s, and then the follow-up study was done in the 1980s. So there was a 20-year gap. In the first study, they showed pictures of many Westerners, okay? And they were asked to choose who looked handsome or beautiful, okay? And the subjects who were from remote areas of Asia, they're all different in choosing whom they thought was handsome or beautiful, okay? So there was, let's say, 10% consensus, okay? Meaning at least having been picked by, let's say, 40% or 50% of the subjects. But when they did the follow-up study 20 years later, that percentage went up to like 70%. So which showed how the penetration of like television, the Western media, made their standards of beauty more similar, okay, to the West. So we gotta sort of ask ourselves, how much of this standard of beauty is no longer sort of sort of stands on its own, but is very much influenced by the media and also the West. So we talked about these cultural universals and also cultural diversity. And you may think of this cultural diversity as something that is inconvenient, puzzling, and maybe cumbersome. But the opposite of cultural diversity is what? Everyone, okay? Just living in one culture. Everyone eating the same food. Reading the same books. Believing in the same religion, okay? Wouldn't that be a terrible world to live in? So, cultural diversity is important as a source of increased choices, imagination, innovation, and inspiration. Okay? So, if you like music, and if you're, let's say Korean, without the outside influences, can you imagine yourself listening to pansori 24 hours a day? I'm not putting it down, but the point is, we have choices, right, of listening to Western classical music, rock music, jazz, blues, right? These are, again, we have choices, more choices in listening to the music we want to listen to. And that's all because of cultural diversity that exists. Okay? What about food? I love rice, I love kimchi, I eat them every day, but it is good to have some alternative choices, right? Thai food, Vietnamese, pizza, right? So these are all about us living in this very culturally diverse world, okay? And it's a very high time that we appreciate that, okay? Because we are living in a very multicultural society. Okay, multicultural society that we live in is a reality that we cannot avoid, okay? So you gotta enjoy, okay? And appreciate this beautiful world that we live in, okay? Before I move on, do you have any comments or questions? No questions? No comments? Okay. Components of culture. I think we're moving too fast because I don't really have everything I wanted in this set of slides. So the class may end early. Would you like, is that good? Did you just nod your head? Just culture, if you wanted to define what culture is, this is what probably a good definition. Okay? Culture refers to the distinct ways that people living in different parts of the world adapted creatively to the environment. Okay? And culture consists of, just for fun, can you list all the components of culture, elements of culture? Hey, this is a very open-ended question. You could just name anything and it could be on the list. No. Just culture includes what? Food, language, music, clothing, behavior, instruments, house, norms, religion. History is not culture. So, art, entertainment. That's it. Mindset. Okay. mindset is sort of questionable because something that is shared, but it's not it's not part of the definition. But something to think about. See, whenever I say this, something to think about, it's a compliment. Why? Something obvious is obvious. It doesn't give you like a food for thought, right? But if it's something to think about, it really makes you think. Like, oh, is this correct? Should it, should we sort of accept that as part of whatever we were talking about? So, again, whenever I say that, it's a compliment. What else? Culture. Sort of rules governing sexual behavior would be culture. Okay? Anyone else? Hierarchy. I think something that covers that. Anyway, something to think about.
Attitude towards drugs.
Why do you specifically mention drugs?
No, it's like alcohol. Some countries alcohol, they say alcohol.
I think norms cover that, but I think alcohol, every culture has some type of alcohol, right? That induces sort of a morphine-like feelings. Yes. Education. Yes, education. Am I taking too much time asking you to list? Anyone else? Something striking.
Ceremony. Ceremony.
Ceremonies, yes. Values, of course. Very good. I'm still looking for one more. I owe someone a cup of Maxim coffee, don't I? Who do I owe? Oh, okay. Next Tuesday. And if you want to make sure that I don't forget, email me. Bring me a cup of Mexican coffee. I'm still looking for this. Anyone? And yes, Maxim coffee is on the line. I think somebody did mention religion. Yes.
Medical treatment.
Okay, sort of a medicine or medical treatments. Yes. Was there a hand?
Literature.
Literature, yeah, of course. But I'm still waiting for that one key element. Yes.
Ruling.
Ruling? Rules.
Right.
I think that falls under norms. Okay, norms are rules of conduct, things you should do, things you should not do. So that's why it includes laws. Okay? Yes.
How about morality?
Morality. Yes. But not something that I'm looking for.
Politics.
Politics. Yes.
Beliefs?
Beliefs. Yes. Sports. Yes. Names. Yes. Family structure. Yes.
Mythology.
Mythology, yes. But I'm still not hearing that key term. Yes.
Thought process.
Thought process, yes.
Wouldn't it help if you gave us a
Clue.
clue?
Language is part of that, part of this. Communication, yes. Yes. Oh, are you thinking? I'm gonna, yeah. Society. Not what I'm looking for. Community. Not what I'm looking for. Anyone else? Yes?
Records.
Records? Yes? Now, I'm gonna raise the stake here. 2 cups of Mexican coffee. I've never done this before. 2 cups. And I'll raise the stake. Privileged to visit my office. No, just kidding. Think as I get ready to show you this short YouTube. And for those of you who attended my globalization class, you know what this is. Anyone? Last call. Yes.
Non-verbal communication.
Non-verbal communication. My God, not right. That's the one I'm looking for. Yes.
Is it like dialects or slangs?
It's part of culture, but not what I'm looking for.
Linguistics.
Linguist.
Please say that's right.
People.
It's really a funny.
Das hier ist die Mindset. Das hier ist das wichtigste Gerät des Geschlechter. Das Überlebensradar.
Hello? This is the German Coast Guard.
We're thinking.
What are you thinking about?
So whenever I say, what are you thinking about? You know what I'm saying, right? Okay, I'm still waiting to hear from you that magic word.
People.
Huh? People. If I wait long enough, I'm sure I'll hear many crazy, not crazy, but very interesting elements. Yes. Ethnicity.
Technology.
Technology. Technology is a very good element, but not what I'm looking for.
Interaction with the other cultures.
That is so true, but not what I'm looking for. I told you how it's a major hint. It's part of, language is part of this. I cannot give you any more hints. Writing system. Definitely a part of culture.
Alphabet.
Alphabet. Writing system. Yes?
Is it like the idea of understanding each other and making sense of, like, we use all these elements to make sense?
And I think in one word? Because we're talking about elements, right? So it should be just one word or maybe...
Empathy.
Hmm?
Empathy.
What?
Empathy.
Empathy?
Interpretation.
Interpretation. Ah. See, you're all thinking. That's really a good thing, right?
Actually, there's no answer. He's just making
What
us
did
think.
you say?
He's just making us think.
Communication. Somebody already mentioned that. Huh?
Wasting time.
Huh?
Expression?
Expression. It's part of...
Can you give us another clue? It's been like 10 minutes.
Is it too obvious that I'm trying to kill time with this question? Uh, I think the next part of the slide will show the answer. Oh, it's not there? It's not there. What I was looking for was symbols. Okay? Because every culture has symbols, right? Even the most primitive cultures have totems, which symbolizes sort of their wish to protect themselves from evil spirits and so on, right? So, oh, it's not animated well. Now, okay, you could include symbols here. Now, when I asked you to list the elements of culture, I think there are at least like 30 elements that you mentioned, and we could spend more time sort of trying to list more elements of culture, right? I think if you were to list specific elements that comprise culture, it could be in the hundreds, okay? Now, out of all those hundreds of elements of culture, if you were to just talk about 5 most important elements, what do you think they are? Another question. Are you thinking? 5. 5 most important elements of culture that you need to discuss with those who are not familiar. So for example, if I'm here to talk to you, and let's just assume that you don't know anything about Korean culture, and I just am told to talk about 5 most important elements, what are they? Beliefs. That's 1. Language. 2. Symbols. Yes. 3. And
Religion.
values. You guys saw the list, didn't you? The last one? Norms. You guys are so good. When I raised this question, we could take hours before someone could come up with, all these 5, but you're correct. Symbols, values, beliefs, norms, and language. And don't think that I arbitrarily came up with the list. If you pick up, let's say, any book on introduction to culture or chapter on culture, you would find that many literature referring to these 5 as being the most important elements of culture. Okay, so although my discussion is largely limited to Korean examples, in your free time, think about your own culture and think about your own cultural symbols, your society, where you come from. Let's say for those from Sweden, what are Swedish values? What are Swedish beliefs? What are Swedish norms? And language, it's not just about the ability to speak the language, but understanding the core values. In the case of Korean language, just, when you speak Korean, you're sort of practicing sort of Koreanness. You know how you have to use honorific in speaking Korean with someone older than you or someone senior than you? So you learn the core values of a given culture contained within the language that is spoken. Okay? So for the next 2 weeks or so, I'll be talking about these Korean cultural symbols. These order will be rearranged. I'm going to go with symbols, language, norms, beliefs, and values. Okay? Values come last. And why? Remember how I talked about we are the only species that rely on culture to survive? And out of all the elements of culture, what really, really distinguishes us from other animal species is that we have values. Okay? Because values tell us what is important, what is good. Okay? And you know, if you ever wondered, why did I study so hard? You know, sacrificing all the fun that I could have had. It's because you have values. Okay? So that's why I'm leaving this last, and there's just so much to talk about. Because we're talking about values that make Koreans what they are. Okay? And at the same time, we could also talk about your own culture's values. Okay, let me first start with symbols. Symbol is anything that is meaningful in terms of representing something else, right? So, culture could not exist without symbols because there would be no shared meanings among people. Okay, this is a symbol of love, yes or no? You guys are not responding. Oh, you know. And the flag, symbol of patriotism. Now, let me just jump to this very basic question. Can you think of any Korean cultural symbols? I'm talking about cultural symbols of Korea that have meanings. Again, shared meanings. Okay? So, in this regard, can you, what is the most famous symbol that you know that is Korean? I'm talking about symbol that you see, like, wherever you go, for example. Flag? I'm talking about the most famous. I thought you would mention Samsung logo. Or Hyundai or Kia, right? LG. But what I'm saying is that they are not Korean cultural symbols. Okay? So now, going back to the question. What are the most important cultural symbols of Korea that have meanings? And I think some of you have already mentioned. Yes, the Taeguk, right? I'm just gonna, I wanna have you list the cultural symbols of Korea first before I move on. So you have Taeguk or Tai Chi, symbol of Tai Chi. And symbols don't have to be culture specific because they are shared. What is the most cultural symbol of the Middle East? For every country in the Middle East. The crescent moon, symbolizing Islam, right? It is shared. So Taeguk, Tai Chi is Chinese in origin, but it is more important in Korea. That is why it's in our flag. Okay? So, Taeguk, what else? Tiger. Korean alphabet, it doesn't really carry meaning, you see. But good try. And Taeguk is in what? Taeguk? White. Is whiteness a cultural symbol of Korea? I think I'll be mentioning something that is really significant. I'm not going to ask you this in exams, but at least I want to mention this in passing. How old is Korea as a country? No. country in modern sense of the country? About 60 years, right? It was established in 1948, you see? And when a country is newly founded, what does a country do? And this is called state building. And this is when the government builds roads, builds schools, okay? Builds houses so that people live. Okay, there is this at least minimum level of sort of maintenance or standards of living where commercial activities can be done, and also military buildup. Okay, all of these, when a new country is founded, government does, and this is called state building. Now, after a generation, a decade or two later, what does the government do? It's now time, again, we're talking about a new country. Now the government sort of turns its attention to making its people patriotic. And that is called nation building. And this is when at school, kids learn about the military heroes of the country. Kings, queens, military generals, okay? And they learn about how kimchi is great food, okay? How Hangul is such a wonderful written script. See, all of this came about in Korea in the last 60 years. So this whiteness, can you imagine 500 years ago, a commoner, or even a slave, having pride and having white clothes? You see, this is all made up from the 1960s and on. So this is not something really natural, but something made up by Korean scholars. And we don't blame Korean scholars for doing that, because every country does this. If you look at the history book of let's say, textbooks that are used in, let's say, American schools, they all glorify the past presidents and military heroes. And every country does that. Why? It's a natural process that every country is engaged in building the nation. Okay? That part, sort of this mind, sort of the constructing, the shaping the minds of its citizens to love their country and to have this strong identity as part of the national community is called nation building. And the idea that we, as a country, love something white. That's why we used to wear white. Has been advanced as a sign that we love peace. But that was a justification for being so weak, because we were invaded so many times, and we never won a single war. Okay? So I'm not putting that down. I'm just stating the fact. No, there's no fact. I'm just stating the dominant interpretation. Yes. Song. That's really an interesting question. Can the national anthem be a cultural symbol of Korea? It's something to think about. Yes.
Yeah, I think arirang could be a Korean symbol.
Arirang. So what does arirang convey in terms of the meaning of Korean culture?
Well, I think that the modern meaning would be that this song is being shared by both North and South Korea. So now I think that for a lot of Koreans that would mean reunification, like the Korean peninsula, Korean culture that is being shared through the borders made by politics.
That is also something to think about, whether arirang sort of represents any particular aspect of Korean culture, because depending on the region, the lyrics are different. Okay, but typically it has this sad tone. Okay, a lover leaving you, and so on. But let us think about more obvious examples. Okay, so we have Taegu.
Korean national flower.
Flower. National flower is 무궁화. And that's Rose of Sharon. That's a Korean national flower. That is good. 2. What else? And we mentioned tiger. What else?
The motto. The motto.
Motto.
M-O-T-T-O.
I know. What's motto? What
Well,
motto?
I don't, the national motto. I don't know the Korean one, but
Can motto be a national cultural symbol? Again, let's stick with obvious examples. Yes?
The national emblem of the Republic of Korea.
National emblem which features something. And we're going to get back to that a little bit later. But 태극, tiger, 무궁화. Yes, I'm getting tired too. 5 more minutes. So I'm surprised that nobody's mentioning this. Buddhist swastika. Right? Because many Koreans are Buddhists. And now that's a major hint. What's another religious symbol that is significant in Korea? Cross. Because nearly 1/3 of Koreans are Christians. Okay? We have now 6. What else? Turtles. Okay? Which symbolizes longevity. Okay? So now I'm gonna let you go a few minutes early today. Because once I start, I have to talk for like 10 minutes. So in your free time, think about Korean cultural symbols and what they mean. Okay? Symbols that have meanings. Alright? Thank you.